With all the courage my 7-year-old body could muster, I made my way to my mother's room to lay down a load I carried for as long as I could remember. I entered her room and said, "Doug keeps telling me to pull down my underwear." I was saying so much while saying so little, yet with urgency in her voice, she simply yelled, "Doug, stop." My big brother was molesting me and had been for years. My mother was physically abusive to us, so to say I would get an ounce of gentleness from her would be a lie. However, I thought that something would happen. Only if I had chosen better words, maybe she would have understood I was crying out for help. It was then my obsession with using words began. I did not speak much after that day. I grew to be conscious of the words I selected, the time I said them, and to whom I allowed to listen. Abuse can have a tremendous effect on the psyche. For me, it created paralyzing anxiety, self-doubt, and fear for what I could not control. I did not stand up for that little girl then, but every day since I have been trying to make it up to her. I vowed then that without a doubt I would go to law school. I wanted to fight so badly for the unheard and children who were going through similar circumstances. The issue was I fought for everyone but myself. I've always been terrified of heights, never allowing myself to be a few feet off the ground. Yet there I was, 10 feet above water, knowing I had no other choice but to jump. Seconds later, I dived so deep in the water, I felt as if I would never come up. I breached the top to where I hear my boot camp instructors yell, "Keep swimming, you're okay." And that is just what I did. From lasting 10 minutes in the gas chamber, putting out fires, and rigorous physical training, I never thought I could make it through boot camp in the US Navy. I would tell myself I would never be able to do 50 push-ups and I would never be able to run a mile and a half in 10 minutes. To my surprise, I succeeded. Every step of the way, I had anxiety attacks that I had to fight, like a powerful current I was swimming against. The determination to get a portion of law school paid for was powerful motivation. When the time came to choose a job, legalman, paralegal for the Navy, was my first pick. However, I could not become one until I had served at least 2 years in the service. My only option was a cryptologic technician, a job I was not cut out for, yet earning a rate job in the Navy was not optional. There were no faces that looked like mine in class, the only one with no decoding background or technology degree. After months of breakdowns and self-doubt, graduation day came. It was time for the instructor to announce the 4 sailors out of the 25 of us who would move on to an advanced signals intelligence course, while the rest went off to sea. Relieved I was finally done, I was ready to go out to sea, but then he called my name. I went to my instructor and told him I was not cut out for the advanced course. I asked him if he was sure he did not want to choose someone else. He said to me, "You are exactly what they are looking for. Your scores were high not because it came easy to you, but because you applied yourself." So there I was, in an advanced course with classmates who had been in the Navy well over 10 years and who applied for this specific course to advance their careers, while I was there before going to my first duty station. To say I struggled in that course would be an understatement. I just could not understand why the universe would put me there. Little did I know just how much graduating from that course would do for me in the long run. Every day after, I was amazed at the fact that I led an office in decoding some of the most challenging signals, having a direct hand in advancing our country's intelligence posture. Although I excelled at my job, I had then reached 2 years in service. It was time to put in my transfer package to become a legalman, but it was denied. The cryptologic technician rate lacked the manpower the intelligence community needed. Not discouraged, I looked for anything within my command where I could be an advocate for the law, thus becoming legal assistant for 2 Command Judge Advocate Generals Corps, JAG. While working as legal assistants, while leading an advanced signal recovery team on a rotating shift basis proved to be difficult. Toward the end of my service contract, it was time to study for the LSAT. As I studied, that self-doubt crept in, begging the question if I truly had what it took, and if I should just stay in service as a cryptologist. That is when I understood why the universe put me through such a challenging career and put me in situations out of my element. If I could succeed in areas that I feared the most, why couldn't I succeed in my dream? The cloud of self-doubt and anxiety followed me. However, I have prevailed. All this time, I have looked at my generalized anxiety disorder as a mental health burden when it is really my superpower. It is the adrenaline from my anxiety that fuels my fight against fear. I owe it to that 7-year-old girl to no longer be prisoner to her trauma and to show her that she is worthy and that she belongs, no matter in the literal or figurative sense. My fear heights has been constant. But what I have learned is that on the other side of that fear, at the top of this seemingly unscalable heights, my future awaits me. I give appreciation to all my trials because now I know what I can accomplish if I just jump. Wow, this one's powerful. Okay. Thoughts on this one?
I think with this one, it seems like she's kind of unclear really why she wants to go into law school. And you could kind of sense it with the, I guess, kind of going around as to how crypto didn't tie in to the legal profession rather than personally how the class or how her experience or even her making it through that course uh, fits her for the challenges of rigorous academic study. I would say.
Yeah, there's that question. Why law school? Definitely. I also have questions about how this all ties together. I feel like there could be multiple statements in this one. Victoria?
For me, it got a little bit confusing because she mentions herself, I believe, in like the third person. And it got a bit confusing for me because I was like, does she mean herself or some other little girl? And it seems like she views herself as like the underdog. And she got a little bit of, she rose up in spite of all that happened to her. But then she talks down about herself, saying that she wasn't able to do this, she didn't get this job. And I feel like she should take more value in herself for getting this far. I feel like she's pushing herself much down than actually the strong person that she is. Because a lot of people can't say the same thing from experience, all the things that she did and how far she has gotten despite that. So I think it's a very powerful essay, like you said, but I feel like it needs better structure, and she needs to know better like talking points, like better structure and style, because it changes from the beginning. It goes on one topic and then it goes something, and she talks about the Navy. I feel like there should be somewhat of a connection between the two different paragraphs to help tie it in, or else it feels more disorganized.
Yeah, I think she opens and closes with her 7-year-old self and then jumps to the Navy in between. But again, how do those tie together? And I agree with you on the underdog thing, actually. And I sense that she's viewing herself as an underdog, as someone the odds are always against her, maybe even as a victim sometimes in many contexts, obviously with good reason. But what's the story that she wants to tell? What's the theme she wants us to take away from this? I think are some questions that maybe she has some space to play with. Leslie?
Yeah, kind of going off what you said and what previous people have said. I liked it. Like, I think this person definitely has writing skill. But again, I feel like they definitely could have picked like one of these stories and expanded upon it instead of introducing so many smaller stories. And there was a lot of parts that, like, again, they were really like poignant and they were powerful, but they weren't like stretched out enough. Like, actually, one of my favorite parts was, I think it was in the middle. It's a little bit further down, but anyway, it was the part where it said like, oh, it didn't come easy to you, but you applied yourself. Like, I feel like that's a really, like, what's it called? Like, inspirational. And like, I mean, I think that's like a very good quote for law school in general. Like, I think like you're not going to get by just by being smart. Supposedly you need to apply yourself to it. So I think they could have centered the essay more around that and how they applied themselves and got over all of their trials with that. But other than that, it was also kind of lengthy because, again, they're introducing so many other things going on at the same time. And then also, you know, they had a bit of rough transitions from topic to topic, but the emotion is there, so that's good. It's definitely interesting, but it definitely needs a little more organizational help. So that's what I would say.
Well, thank you, Leslie. Ayaka and Fiona, I think both of you had comments if you wanted to share.
Okay, so I'm Fiona. I'm going to go. I think her story overall was the best that I've heard all evening. And I think, too, what I really love about her story, it focuses a lot on her determination, overcoming tons of triumph and also her endurance, because her wanting to join the Navy was because she wanted to shave off costs for law school. So at the end, her end goal was always first in mind. And so struggling through boot camp, she had to overcome that. Another setback she faced was not getting into the legalman field, which is the equivalent of being a paralegal in the Navy. So the general population might not know that, but I think if she clarified that legalman is synonymous to being a paralegal, it will give her that launch off pathway of, oh, wow, she wanted to get into this job, but then she had another curveball of going into crypto. And then when she got to crypto, she could have just lost focus and said, oh my God, I'm in this new field. I'm doing all this awesome stuff for Navy and intelligence. I'm a part of this greater mission. But she still remained focused and saying, you know what, I want to get out and further my goal of still becoming an attorney, since I haven't been able to continue in those pursuits. So I think her military experience, some of the definitions need a little bit of clarification, but overall, it's a story of triumph and perseverance. And I think for the law school admissions department, that's what they're looking for. How do you, in the face of adversity, continue to pick yourself up and overcome them over and over again? Because that's what the legal profession is all about. So I think beautifully done.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that I love about this essay, and she could focus on the Navy portion specifically, and then the story about the 7-year-old girl that she was. Maybe that could be in a diversity statement where she could have a different angle on herself and her background to show her persistence there as well, and how she's been impacted by that as well. But the Navy example, I do think, obviously, just as they love student athletes, there's plenty of positive character traits associated with that. Same goes for the military, of course. And the fact that she chose the military to get law school paid for, of course, that's certainly worth mentioning. But I also wouldn't want her to do a play-by-play of her entire Navy experience, start to finish. This paragraph where she talks about this, then that, then that, then that, I'm not sure that we need that, because that's more like a resume to give just the list of the different things she did, where she could have done this, she did that instead. I don't want it to, this shouldn't be a work experience sort of thing. I want her to give specific anecdotes from the Navy time and going through telling us what that her instructor told her. Certainly that's worth mentioning. Talking about some of the details of difficult things she dealt with, like the gas chamber, fires, rigorous training. Sure, that's all great as well. So I think those are worth mentioning, but I wouldn't want this to simply become a list of different roles she's had in the Navy in particular. But Fiona, I do agree that there's plenty of perseverance in this essay, and that's definitely something they want to see. Ayaka, did you have thoughts you wanted to share on this one?
Yeah, so everyone said a lot of things, and I agree with most of it. I think one of the things, and I'm guilty of doing this in my own essay as well, is kind of getting passive, like having a passive voice where, and you mentioned it, Steve, where it sounds like a resume where it's like, oh, I was pushed into this and then I was pushed into that, and not talking about what I got out of that experience, or, you know, what positive thing is added on to my own experience of the world. And so she can go into that, or this person can go into that. I think it would add on rather than sound a little bit more passive.
Thank you. No, Yaka, that's exactly right. Yeah, so to give the takeaways from those particular anecdotes, those particular cases she experienced in the Navy, rather than just giving us a list of A, B, C, 1, 2, 3 through the entire Navy journey. Thanks for that. Any other thoughts on this one, anybody?
I have a question.
Sure.
So for a diversity statement for this person, I'm assuming you could probably go the mental health route with it, but would the Navy perspective also be something that she could have put in there as well, and then be able to focus on a separate story in here? Is that a thing? I don't know if that's a thing.
You mean to write a diversity statement about military background?
Yeah, or mental.
Yeah, could be. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, diversity statement could be a lot of different things.
Okay.
It could be a lot of different things. It's just something unique about your background that you want to share. Something that gives you a unique perspective. There's a lot of routes that you could take with that. So a lot of topics that people use for personal statements could be diversity statement as well. And one of the previous ones we did this evening about the undocumented applicant, that one could have been a diversity statement too, or part of that could have been as well. Yeah, there's a lot of routes one can take there. And that gives you some flexibility because you really get to give 2 essays rather than 1. So rather than trying to cram it all into one main personal statement. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.